Oh, hey, do you want to improve your vocabulary in a fun and easy way? Well, I've got the tips for you. Stick around. So, most people think that the best way to grow their vocabulary is by using simple flashcards. I want to tell you why that's a bad idea. See, on a flashcard, you usually have the word you're trying to learn. For example, hola, right? And we put the translation in our native language, hi. The problem with this way of learning vocabulary is that language is never one-to-one. Each word that we learn in a different language has many different meanings in each language, and they have many different ways that you can use it. So memorizing vocabulary with flashcards is really not the best way to learn vocabulary. If you want a fast way to pass a vocabulary exam, maybe. But if you really want to improve your speaking skills, your listening skills, reading, writing, all of those, then the best way to do that is extensive reading. Now, what is extensive reading? Extensive reading is the opposite of intensive reading. So intensive reading is the type of reading we do in class most of the time. It's a short text, maybe half a page or a page, and we really focus on this text. We try to understand all the words. We ask questions about this text. We discuss the grammar, the syntax, all of that stuff. And it's pretty boring and it's difficult. Extensive reading is the opposite. Extensive reading is reading a lot for pleasure and reading at an easy level for you, not something extremely difficult. I'm not suggesting you go out and buy the most difficult book there is on physics and try to read it in the language that you're learning. I'm talking about finding books that are your level, just a little bit above your level, so that you can learn vocabulary fast. Now, how do we learn vocabulary from reading? It's actually pretty simple. Our brains are made to understand language, and they're very good at filling in the blank if we don't understand a word. If you see a sentence, and in that sentence there's one word you don't understand, you can probably guess its meaning. If not the exact meaning, something close. And every time you see that word in a different place, you'll start understanding that word better. It only really takes about 10 to 15 times to see that word before you get a very good idea of what that word means. And I'm not talking about one use of the word, I'm talking about many uses for the same word. If you learn through reading, you have the potential to learn 10 to 15 words a day in a way that is very easy without even thinking. And that's what's so amazing about learning vocabulary through reading. It's funner than doing flashcards. It's funner than writing a word 15 times on a board. When you're reading extensively, you have to feel comfortable knowing that you're not going to understand 100% of the words. You have to accept that and try to guess what's happening. Of course, you want to know ideally 90 to 95% of the words. And you want to guess words that you see that maybe you don't know. And through time, through reading, if a word is important, you'll see it again. And so that's really what we're working on here. We don't want to learn a bunch of rare words that nobody uses or that people used 300 years ago. We want to use the most common, most useful words today. And you'll do that by reading a lot. So when you're going through your book and you come across a word you don't know, try to guess, try to understand it from context, and keep going. You're only trying to get the main idea. Just forget about the specifics and the details, just big picture here. And I want to tell you something that a lot of people don't know. The average advanced English learner knows only about 5,000 vocabulary words. The average native speaker who hasn't gone to university knows about 20,000 words. That's not even discussing the average university level native speaker who knows about 40,000 words. So how do we bridge the gap between 5,000 to 40,000 words? And the answer is definitely not flashcards. I mean, imagine making 40,000 of these. It's impossible. Or it could be possible, but it's something that nobody would like to do. So I know that you're probably saying, I don't like to read. Reading is boring. And I totally understand where you're coming from. For a lot of people, their experience with reading has been terrible. They've been forced to read books they're not interested in. They've been forced to read at school. Their parents made them read. Their schools gave them summer reading lists that they had to complete. That's the main problem here. The problem isn't that reading is boring. It's that you haven't found books that interest you. So if you really want to improve your vocabulary through reading, you have to find books that are interesting to you. And that's different from person to person. Some people are interested in cars. Some are interested in animals. Some are interested in beauty products. So you have to find books that are interesting and that are at your level. Because starting with a regular book, if you've only studied English for a few years, can be very difficult. The order I suggest to my students is like this. Start with graded readers. Graded readers are books made for people studying English. If you're studying other languages, you can find graded readers for those languages too. You want to try many levels because graded readers have a bunch of levels. You want to find the level that works for you. If you're advanced, then you can try level 3, 4, 5. After you've read a few of these books, maybe 10, 12, they're very short, they're only 20, 30, 40 pages, then I recommend you'd go to the young adult fiction. These are simple books written for young adults, teenagers, that don't have very complicated language in them. Things like Harry Potter, things like Twilight, or there are many different options if you just go on Amazon and search young adult fiction. After you do young adult fiction, you can just go to regular fiction books written for adults. And if you want to specialize in something or work in something, after you've gone from graded reader to young adult fiction to regular fiction, you can start reading in the field that you want to know more about, be it education, engineering, medicine. But you can't just start reading specialized English without a very strong base in regular daily English. Just like anything else, specialized language has to be built on top of the basics. And so I don't recommend jumping straight into books about medicine or books about engineering or education. You have to build a strong base first. And I know that a lot of people will say, I don't want to read. Reading is difficult. But this also works for audiobooks. Audiobooks are just as beneficial, if not more beneficial than reading books, because you get to practice your listening, and it's usually very clear. They don't speak very quickly in audiobooks. And so if you're looking for a good place to find audiobooks, I recommend Storytel. I use their app to listen to Arabic audiobooks, and you can find English audiobooks there as well. So that's a really good company to use for audiobooks. I would say probably the hardest thing about reading is being consistent, making sure that you do it every day. Because if you don't do it every day, you won't see the same results. You won't benefit as much as someone who reads every day. There has been lots of research done on people who read. And it's usually people who read who do the best on English exams like the IELTS or the TOEFL or even the SAT. People who read, they're a lot better at understanding, comprehending, and understanding language in general. So what can you do to make it easy to read every day? Well, I want you to take a minute and think to yourself, when in my day do I have time to read? And I want you to think about an activity that you usually do at that time. For example, I have lunch at 2 p.m. every day. I have 30 minutes before lunch to read. So I will say every day, 30 minutes before lunch, I will read my book. That's not enough. After you decide when you want to do it and where you want to do it, you need to make it easy. So say, for example, usually when you come home, you sit at a desk or you sit on a couch. You want to put that book next to that couch, next to that desk. So it's very easy for you to grab the book and do the reading. Because if we find any excuse to not do something, it's very easy for us to just say, I'll do it later, I'll do it later. So if you want to form a habit, those are my 2 tips. Make sure that you say when and where you will do this and what you will do after or before. And make sure it's very easy for you to see the book, find the book, touch the book. If you still would like to do flashcards, I would say that the best way to do flashcards is with full sentences. Put the word that you're trying to learn in context. So if you're reading a book and you really want to learn a word that you keep saying, write the whole sentence in English, underline the word, and define the word on the other side of the note card. That way, you're focusing on the meaning in context. So when you practice your flashcards, you look at that English sentence and you read it and you think, do I understand this? If not, you go to the back and check to see if you're understanding the word. And when you do study, you only study the English side first, never from your native language to the other language on the back. Translation is a different skill, and we don't want to study translation until we get into a very advanced, almost fluent level. So take your vocabulary books, 30 days to a more powerful vocabulary, throw them away, take your one-word flashcards, burn them in the winter for warmth, and start reading. If you want any recommendations, comment below. I'd be more than happy to help you find books that you'd find interesting. I know that you can do it. I know because I've helped many people read extensively. So get started and comment below if you have any questions. Make sure to subscribe, like the video, and hit the notification bell to get more videos like this. Thanks, guys. Bye.